Hey guys, what's up? It's Paul Salazar. I have Christian Hose from our team, as well as Lee Ann Hitchman, founder of Hitchman Fiduciaries, with over 20 years of experience in her industry. I'm really excited about having Lee Ann over here because there's a lot to learn. We do a lot of trust sales here in Los Angeles, helping families sell their homes and their assets. And Lee Ann is an expert at helping those trusts with that process. Welcome, Lee Ann. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So tell us just a little bit about what you do.
So what I do is I act as an independent professional trustee. So typically the settler or the guy who started the trust, right, who drafted the trust, is either deceased or incapacitated. And the successor trustee is kicked in. And what I personally do is I act as a professional acting as a successor trustee. But sometimes, or frequently, it's not a professional like myself. It could be a family member or a friend who's acting as a successor trustee. And in many ways, we actually have the same job and the same duties and the same risks. But as a professional, obviously, I'm going to be pretty cognizant of it. And I want to relay that to you and to the audience and to anybody out there that's acting as a successor trustee.
Okay. So you're basically acting on behalf of the trust.
Correct. Correct.
And basically that's like being the CEO of a company, right?
Kind of, because you have the responsibility of everything going on with that trust.
Okay, sounds good. And I know, Christian, you're going to hit it off with some.
So we brought Lee Ann here today because obviously we had a recent trust sale, the Crescent Drive, which came to the market in November. And I think within 4 weeks we had it under contract, and it was a really, really seamless kind of transaction on the trust side, working with these guys. So great opportunity to kind of come in today and really understand. Look, there's lots of complexities around trust sales, and there's a lot of challenges as well. And I think it's a great opportunity today to really kind of educate the audience, whether you're the beneficiary, a trustee, even a real estate agent, into how these common challenges you can actually overcome and start to deliver a really good experience and value to those sales. So I think to kick things off, if we can, maybe for the audience, like what is the difference between, let's say, a trust sale and a regular real estate transaction?
Yeah, it's really important to differentiate that, Christian. So when I say a trust sale, what I'm thinking is that the owner of that property is probably deceased or at a minimum incapacitated. His trust owns that property, but he or she is not actively administering it or managing it. So that kicks in something called a successor trustee, which is an individual that the person has picked. Could be a professional like myself, could be a child, could be a brother, sister. Somebody acts in his place to administer this trust. And so that trust sale is really different in the sense of, if I'm alive and well, I have a trust and I'm selling my own property or buying a property, I get to do what I want to do, right? But when that person is not with us to make those decisions, that successor trustee is really in the hot seat. And so that's why this trust sale becomes different than a normal transaction, even though I know probably 90% of the business that you do involves a trust of some kind, but usually what we call the settler is alive and well, and it's really for themselves. It's just a legal box that it's put in.
Got you.
Okay, so who hires you? Is it the?
It's a good question.
Is it one of the trustees?
So, well, there's a couple ways I can be hired. First of all, is the settler, the original person, may write me into the trust, and so when he or she dies or becomes incapacitated, that's triggered. So that's one way. Could be that there's beneficiaries fighting. And that they need a neutral party to come in. That's a lot of hard work.
I'm sure that never happens.
Never happens. I don't know how. It's probably 80% of or it's only 50% of our work. So they want a neutral party to step in. It could be that there isn't anybody. Maybe the person that was named as a successor trustee isn't here anymore. I see that a lot when maybe a sibling is named that's of the same age or a friend, and suddenly there isn't anybody. So maybe they've had to go into court and have us appointed. So somehow we got there, and we're acting as a successor trustee.
So I guess my first question from that is a probate sale compared to a trust sale in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So a probate sale is when they don't have a trust, right? And then it goes into the legal system.
So here's my beg of everybody, because it costs families money. Don't let that happen.
Yeah.
Do not let that happen. It is relatively inexpensive in California to have somebody draft a trust for you. And that way you avoid, or hopefully you avoid probate. The second thing that happens though is if you don't title your assets in the trust that you created, you don't avoid probate.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid probate. Did you know it takes typically well over a year to get through a probate?
Wow.
So
From when that person passes, and then
no, from when maybe they even the administrator was appointed, the person might have passed
Wow.
60, 90 days prior easily. Person gets appointed. All sorts of things have to happen. They have to happen with the court. It takes time to get a court hearing.
Yeah.
And then you have to get a court order to actually finalize the probate and distribute to the bennies. You don't want to do that. Plus, it costs more money.
Yeah.
So gosh, I know nobody wants to think about when they're gone. I get it. But not planning is guaranteeing your beneficiaries end up spending more time and money to fix this.
And stress.
It's stress probably too.
So-
and it's public. Everyone knows.
Yeah.
That's icky.
Yeah. So say like if my parents owned a $10 million house
Mhm.
in Beverly Hills, right?
Yep.
And it was under their name.
Yep.
And they got in a car accident and they
Yep.
passed.
Yep.
It would go to probate.
Correct.
And at that point, I had to be like trying to fight for that asset.
Yeah,
to stay
and all
in,
their other assets
and
too.
all the other assets to
Yeah,
stay in it.
yeah.
Okay.
And you might even have a mortgage on that under the scenario that you named where they died suddenly. Maybe there's a mortgage and you've got to pay that mortgage and you got to keep the lender from foreclosing on you, but maybe you don't have assets yet to pay the mortgage, and I could go on and on.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's icky. You don't want to go there if you can help it. Your parents need to have a trust.
Yeah.
And they can name you as a successor trustee.
Yeah.
And then you could immediately, as soon as you have that death certificate, which, 2 weeks, something like that, you could start acting. You could go in and get the funds from their accounts and pay that mortgage and list that house and so on.
So if their house was under a trust, they pass
Mhm.
away,
Mhm.
but they don't have a successor trustee there. Then it has to go through
Yeah.
it has to go to court.
It depends,
Right.
not necessarily. It depends. I sound like an attorney. It depends. So if they may have named, they should have named somebody to start with. If
Right.
that person's unavailable or declined, for whatever reason, they might say, no, I don't want the job, which is not unfair because it is a job.
Yeah.
Then they may have somebody named after them. They may have a whole line of succession, which is nice. If they don't have it, then you look to the terms of the trust. A lot of times the trust has the ability to allow the beneficiaries to appoint somebody. So then you go that way. If everything fails, then you go to court and you have somebody named, but that takes a little bit of time because you have to find an attorney, petition the court. Court has to agree. Then you have to get the order. So you're talking about some delay, but it does happen because if you think about people setting up their trust documents maybe 20 or 30 years ago, and they haven't revisited it, which was maybe a mistake, but I get it, then maybe the people or the person they chose is no longer here, or maybe they're old and they're not
Correct.
able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of attorneys will put in a safety mechanism, but it really depends on the individual trust and
Okay.
what's going on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so what are the different layers? You said you have the trustees, and you have a successor trustee,
Yeah.
and then you have beneficiaries. Is there anything else in between?
So maybe
that?
we better define what those are.
Let's
So
do
we
that.
have the settler grantor is the guy whose trust it is. So I have a trust. Maybe you guys have a trust. You're the settler grantor of that.
Settler
And maybe
grantor.
with a spouse, kind of a situation, you might do it together.
So you talked about the beneficiaries, successor trustee, and then you have the actual trustee.
Mhm.
So give us like a breakdown of
Let me
what
give
that
you the
is.
definitions.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the person whose trust it is called the settler or grantor. Same name, same meaning, or different names, same meaning, I should say. They are also their own trustee in the beginning. So I have a trust. My bank accounts or my financial accounts are in the name of my trust. I'm my own trustee. My husband and I are. But let's say I get to the point where I am not able to handle my affairs. I lack capacity through dementia. Then that would trigger a successor trustee. So the successor trustee is the guy that steps in for me. So when I act as a professional trustee, I'm stepping in for that person. If it's a family member, they're stepping in for that person. And it could be either that individual is incapacitated or that they've died. either one is called a successor trustee. A lot of times, in my opinion, it's good drafting, but sometimes we don't have them. There might be a line of successor trustees. So, that's why I had 6 kids, you guys. So I can have
6
plenty of people.
kids. That's a lot.
I do, it's a lot. So, there's the first one. If they don't want to do it, there's a second one, or they're gone, or whatever. So 6 is a bit much. And actually, not all my kids are named because some of them couldn't handle it. But anyway, I won't go there.
You're not watching this video.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Edit that out. Depending, it's good to have more than one, but some people don't have that. Or sometimes people will name a professional as a backup. I think that happens a lot with us, and we just don't even know it, where they've named, say, a sibling. They don't have children, they've named a sibling, and they know the sibling is their contemporary, and so maybe they name me as a backup for that.
Okay.
So that's successor trustee, and once that successor trustee is triggered, we could also call them the trustee because they're standing in the shoes.
Yeah.
Beneficiaries are the guys that get the money, the proceeds. So a beneficiary could even be the successor trustee, but they are basically the people who are going to inherit your bounty. Okay. And beneficiaries have a lot of say in the process. Sometimes, particularly family trustees want to say, go away, I'm in charge. But that's really not correct because, you're in charge, but you have a duty to them. You have a duty of transparency and disclosure and all sorts of stuff. So they do have a lot of power.
Okay.
Yep.
Great stuff.
All right, awesome.
So I think in terms of your role as fiduciary internee, as you come into these trust sales, what are the typical things that you're providing in terms of your service? And also maybe, we touched on it a little bit just now, but what are things you need to get in place? If you're a trustee that's looking to set up a trust, for example, so you're not running into some of these challenges like court confirmation, other things that we know can be a problem.
Exactly.
So I'd love to get your kind of idea on your role and then responsibilities, and then also what is it that who should be preparing themselves for when it comes to trust sales and best practice?
Okay, so let's say that somebody is a trustee, and this is true whether it's myself, this is what I do for a living, or whether it's the settler's daughter. We actually have the same set of duties and the same responsibilities. And it all centers around protecting that trust and maximizing the money coming in. So you can't say, well, I'm just the family member, I didn't know any better. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So the things that I would do to answer your question in terms of getting ready to have a sale of a property, I've got to do all sorts of stuff. I have to select the agent broker. A lot of times I get beneficiaries wanting me to select Aunt Sally, right? Aunt Sally. And so I go look up what Aunt Sally's been doing the last couple of years, and she sold 1 property in 2 years. As a trustee, regardless of whether I'm professional or whether I'm a family trustee, the selection of Aunt Sally might not be the best choice.
Yeah.
For one thing, she may not know what she's doing, respectfully. But secondly, if anything goes wrong, even if she did know what she's doing, somebody's going to immediately say, hey, Aunt Sally hasn't sold anything. Why did you pick her? So what I do is, in order to justify it, is I actually interview multiple agent brokers. And I come up with a set of criteria. I ask everybody to bid on it. And I have a selection process. And the reason why I do that isn't trying to make everybody go through a bunch of hoops and work. It's because if I'm ever asked, I want to be able to evidence why I made that selection. And you guys, every residential property has unique things. For example, maybe it's rented out. Maybe we're in the city of LA, not even the county of LA, and we have a tenant. And maybe the tenant has got really low rent. That's going to impact potentially the sale price, right?
Yeah.
And so I might want an agent broker who's really good at working with tenants.
Yeah.
That might be the critical success factor. It might be in a geography that has issues. What if I was in Pacific Palos Verdes with all the slide stuff? I want somebody that knows that stuff, right? Sure. That can properly disclose. So every property, the trustee needs to look at it and decide what agent broker is going to be best for that area and what is their expertise.
So that earlier you said that you had a risk. And that's the risk, right? Like if you hire somebody that isn't going to do a good job, they can come back after you.
Correct.
If they wanted to. Right?
Yeah, they can absolutely come back after you. So beneficiaries can come back after you. And I digress just for 1 second. So the way the law reads on trust administration is the beneficiary has the right to the books and records of the trust. And so I see, I see huge battles, particularly when it's family members. Whomever is the trustee thinks that they're God almost. It thinks that they're the authority. I have the power.
Yeah.
And yeah, they do, but they don't, because a beneficiary can really come at them hard. They could start litigation, they can question them. What I see starting a lot of fights within families is the family trustee says, I don't need to tell you. And they're kind of snotty about how they say it too. And that's not true. They actually do have a duty to tell that person whatever it is they're asking. So the risk, whether you're a related non-professional trustee or a professional trustee, is the same. We all can get sued.
Okay.
And I say that with a poignant pause.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deal. We can
Suits,
all
yeah.
get sued.
Yeah.
And actually, I do see some trustees declining to serve because of that. They just don't want it, particularly if there's complications maybe with the real property or something else going on. And I get it because they are at risk.
So then at that point, do they try to appoint somebody like you?
Usually, like one of my funny, not funny odd, but funny odd ones was the poor settler died in the middle of this humongous $4 million construction project on this residence. It was huge, and it had a lot of challenges because it's being built on a hill, and it was just really bad because then part of the property slid into the neighbors, and just it goes on and on and on. Well, his successor trustee didn't want to touch it. Like, I can't say I blame it because there was lots of liability. We had to work with the insured. We had to work with the neighbor who wasn't too happy, and so on. So it's okay for successor trustee to say, no, I don't want to do this. One, the time involved, that one was huge.
The time
and second, there was a risk that if we got it wrong and somebody, could make accusations to us, and even if we didn't get it wrong, but they just start accusing us, we have to defend ourselves. So again, that's why somebody might not want to be a trustee. And I don't say that trying to get business for myself. What I'm trying to emphasize is that sometimes it's not simple. That's all.
Yeah, and it, like you said, I mean, all the time that you take, they're taking on that on themselves. And if they have a full-time job, interviewing agents and making sure that they have the right criteria in case, I mean, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it will probably take them double or triple the time it takes me because I haven't, although I can't say that I'm used to landslides into the neighbor's house. But I did know how to go find counsel that had expertise in that, so I had enough contacts. They may not have that.
The vendor list is really important.
Vendor list is really important. Sometimes I wonder, do I actually do anything, or do I just find experts?
Well,
literally.
It took you 20 years to build out trusted, solid vendors that are going to do a good job.
Correct. Yeah.
What is the biggest, in your experience, challenges that you find within the trust sale? What is the stuff that people should be aware of that can maybe get themselves ahead of it before it kind of comes?
So I think the selection of the agent broker is huge.
Yeah.
Because that can make or break you. Because I'll never forget. I was so embarrassed. I had selected this agent, and this is the olden days, it was a while back. He took photos with his iPhone, and the quality wasn't great. And he had his foot in two of them, which I didn't catch when I looked at it. It was on the MLS. And there were trash cans in another one. I mean, I know you're looking at me like, no, but it happens. So the selection of the agent broker, because you guys are the ones putting the property forward. And the beneficiaries poured over those, pictures, and boy, did they ever complain. I was laughing. My daughter that I work with was on the phone today with a beneficiary, and that beneficiary wanted to know whether or not the home was staged, because there were digital furniture staging photographs used in the MLS. And she didn't. She was older. She didn't understand the difference. Well, how much did that cost? She kept saying. It's like, no, we didn't deliver the furniture. But that it was kind of a testimonial to the agent, because they had done a beautiful job with that virtual staging that she believed it to be real. But those are examples where it's really critical that you guys make it look good. The biggest thing, though, you asked me what's the biggest thing. That's up there. But I think the very biggest challenge, and I used to, for years and years, I didn't accept this, but it's the communication with the beneficiaries. I was kind of a snob, and I thought, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. Let me just do my job as efficiently as I can. That didn't work so well.
No.
Did not work. But I'm kind of, I was an engineer before I did this. So I just am sort of boneheaded, I think, sometimes. No offense to the engineers, but I thought, I know what I'm doing. It's black and white. Leave me alone. The problem with that is when you're not communicating with beneficiaries, they imagine the worst.
Yeah.
Absolutely the worst. And we're talking frequently, this is the residence of a loved one that, lived there. So this may even be the family home that they grew up in. And here's Lee Ann being flippant. Yeah, I got it. I got it in control. And they're thinking, oh, that was the cabinet that my dad built, or whatever it is that's emotional. So one of the things that we've done to correct that, and it has just worked brilliantly, is we've come up with sort of standardized, non-standard reports, if that makes sense. So 80% of the time it's repeated for each situation, but they're also significantly customized. And I might produce 3 to 5 of those on any given sale. And we're telling the beneficiaries what's going on. And so the first, it's so important.
We do the same thing.
The very first, it's so obvious, but people don't do it for the most part. The very first one talks about the selection of the agent. How many did we interview? What did the comps look like? And we give them that marketing data. I'll give them an appraisal. Why hide the appraisal? There's no secret there. But I know a lot of trustees don't like to share the appraisal, which is crazy because if somebody's passed, you have to have a date of death appraisal for tax reasons. So there's no secret here. Show it to them, share it with them. So we do a series of between 3 and 5, depending on what's going on. We talk about how many people are inquiring. We talk about how many hits we get off of the MLS. And we just really try to give them a full picture. And but the trick is I'm not asking them to make a decision about what we're doing, but I'm trying to inform them. And that's a really fine line to walk. Because as trustee, I own the responsibility. I can't have 5 people telling me
what to do,
right? I would go crazy. But at the same time, they have every right to know what's going on, and they should. And I think that reporting has carried into all other aspects of what we're doing. And this year in 2025, we're rolling out even more reports in other areas like the financial accounts, like if we have artwork or whatever it might be, we're starting to do it. Just keep that communication up. And before we would be more casual, send an email. Now we're trying to have more formal reporting. Just because that's what they're craving. I mean, this is a lot of money typically to them. Sometimes sometimes the beneficiary may be dependent on this money to live on. And so it's a lot. Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of wealth transfer going on. So they're nervous, and they're understandably so. I'm a stranger to them. If I was a family trustee, there might be all sorts of grudges, and you took my teddy bear when you were 3. All those things come out. So as a professional, we have issues of maybe mistrust. And then if I was a family trustee, I think there's issues of mistrust. So increasing that level of communication, and you guys as agent brokers can play a huge role in that. Give the trustee the data, help them write that report, help them ask them, hey, when was the last time you talked to anybody? We've had 3 offers and they all fell through. Did you tell anybody?
I think it's a really valid point, because I think with any real estate transaction, you've got to be communicating, right? And communication is so important. I think even more important is generally trust sales, because everything has to be audited, right? So if there's anything that comes up at any point in the trust sale, this is for that. It's that relation between the trustee and obviously the broker agent, because you've got to be, I think with our recent trust sale in Crescent Drive, every week would be a detailed report, right? Number of viewings, the feedback, the name, the contact. So we provide you with all the data. We get on the call, so you can feed that back to the trustee, all the people that are important within the process. And then that becomes important, both from a legal perspective, because everything's audited and you're being very transparent with that. And secondly, it is the feedback that, the trustee that people want to hear. Like, how the viewings going? Right. What's the feedback? Right. What's stopping us? Is it sold? Is it not sold? Exactly. Right. When do I get my money? It goes back to that overall collaboration across those, the key people within the sale, the trust sale. It's great that you recognise that after your experience of working on these trust sales, how important collaboration is.
So I have a great little story about how an agent broker saved my little tail. We had a property, not fancy, had a lot of deferred maintenance. The woman was elderly when she died. She was living on a fixed income and didn't probably knew she'd had the money, didn't have the energy to put into fixing up her house. So we sold the home as is. The individual that purchased it, we're very limited in the disclosures we can make because we haven't lived there. So if we know something, we'll say something, but we're an exempt seller because we don't know anything. We didn't live there. And so we thought it was a little odd. This he was not a developer per se, but we didn't know what his intentions were with the property. And he was pushing so hard to do it really fast, like 2 week escrow kind of fast, not 4 week, 2 week.
Yeah.
But okay, we'll accommodate. And then he wanted to waive contingency removal. So he was basically saying, I don't need to do an inspection. I'm okay with it as is, which makes us a little uncomfortable because you probably ought to do an inspection.
Yeah.
But okay, we probably asked 5 times. But here's the interesting part is we had documented it really well that we continuously asked him. And the punchline is our agent was out at the house. We really appreciate it when agents are checking on things. Is there a squatter in there? Is there a pipe that broke? And, we unless somebody's out there, we don't know. And, we're also checking on it. So he's out there. While he's there, the buyer comes in and he has a contractor with him. Mm-hmm. And we thought, oh, how interesting, because he was so adamant about waiving the contingencies. But we thought, okay, maybe he just wants to get going. Not a big deal. But the agent called us. And the fiduciary that works for me documented it really, really well. I think he even had the name of the contractor. Yeah. And so he's in our files. Sale goes through. Everything seems okay. Fast forward 4 weeks later. Here comes the letter. Yeah. Turns out buyer is an attorney. Not just any attorney. He's a real estate attorney.
Oh, gosh.
And he is demanding $40,000 for foundation problems that he says we didn't disclose. Yeah. And so...
after you close escrow.
After we close escrow, everything's hunky-dory. We've got the money, all this kind of stuff. But you can't ignore... As much as you want to, just say, go pound sand, I got your money. Yeah. You can't do that. Yeah. And on top of that, he's an attorney. So, he's threatening a lawsuit. And just pay me this and I'll walk away. So I call my counsel, of course, as any trustee should do. And we then go to our files. We had so much data on this guy. We had the 5 times that we asked him, are you sure you want to move contingencies? We had our agent had given us all the information about the chance encounter with the contractor, even to the point where he knew what they had been discussing at the time. Yeah. So we put this whole dossier or set of information, give it to our counsel, who then writes him and says, oh, on such and such a date, this happened. On such and such a date, it was, in fact, it's funny, my attorney was laughing. He says, gosh, I've never seen anything so tightly put together. Guy went away.
Yeah, because he had no chance.
He had no chance.
No,
and I think what he was trying to pull a fast one, and I think what he would have done is maybe he would have settled for $5,000 or $10,000. That was worth writing a letter.
Yeah, and for him it was free to write a letter.
Right, and I think because it was a trust sale, which he knew, it seems less personal. So if I were an attorney that was pulling fast ones, I would look for trust sales, because if I was the homeowner, I'd probably say, hell no, you're not taking my money. And, I'd be emotional about it, right? But I think he's thinking, oh, I can intimidate this trustee. They'll pay me some money and I'm $5,000. I don't know what his number was, but I'm money ahead, and all I had to do was write a letter and send. Yeah. So really important lesson. You got to document everything you're doing and be prepared, because there's really yucky bad guys out there.
Yeah, I love them.
There's bad guys, and they want to do things. And unfortunately, that's not my only story.
I'm sure you have
people trying to get money from us. So
this is a great example, right? That's a great example, a great story of why you do need to document.
Oh, I know, and I love that story because he didn't get anything.
Right.
Are we? I think any other great questions for Lee Ann?
I mean, I think we've talked about some of the key challenges, which have been good. We talked about best practices around communication, collaboration, both with the agent broker, the trustee, the beneficiary, with everyone within basically the trust sale itself. Lee,
I have a question. If you're open to discussing this,
Yeah.
what does a fiduciary typically charge?
Oh yeah, I'm open to
Yeah.
discussing that, of course. So it's kind of all over the place.
Okay.
First of all,
Yeah.
we actually publish our fee schedules on our website.
Okay, great.
We want it to be transparent. So typically we're looking at 1%. So this is assuming it's a settlement trust, meaning somebody died.
Okay.
We're paying off his last bills. We're doing his last tax return. We're selling any properties. We're doing all the stuff to get it ready to distribute to the beneficiaries. So in our case, we charge 1% of the sale. 1% of the value of the estate.
Okay.
I don't ever remember the cutoffs. I think at 5 million it goes down a lower percent, but whatever it is,
Sure.
guys can look it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to be very transparent about
Okay.
that part of it.
That's
Yeah.
smart.
And then we do charge extra for the sale of any property. And the reason for it isn't because we're greedy. It's because that's where our liability is. It's all in the property. Right. So sometimes we'll have property that we're distributing out in kind to a beneficiary. No extra charge for that. Yeah. But if we're selling something, then we do have an extra charge for that.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Is there any, just on the legal side there, are there any kind of legal considerations either the trustee or a buyer should be thinking about either before, during, mostly before, during, and then also post trust sale as well?
Absolutely. So the legal considerations, document everything. Everything, even though it seems stupid and a waste of time, because you don't know if and when somebody's going to try to pull you into a lawsuit. And it is, the lawsuits, it's like winning the lottery for some people. Like for that buyer who was winning the lottery, could be a beneficiary that comes after you. Guys, the elephant in the room is that not every beneficiary is okay also. So some beneficiaries are absolutely broke and they're desperate. Some beneficiaries, quite frankly, have mental health issues. And so they're not always rational in what they're doing. And so the legal consideration is they may go find an attorney who then comes after the trustee.
Yeah.
And that can happen very much. And that come after the trustee could be in two forms. It could be one, hey, I just think, like I've got one right now. They're not coming after me at all, but they're questioning the breakdown of community property versus separate property. There's some forensic accounting that had to be done. And so that's okay that they're questioning it. But boy, I better have my ducks lined up because I think the estate's a $30-40 million estate. If I got something wrong, it's a lot of money and it affects that beneficiary. So I understand why she got an attorney. Yeah. But the legal considerations that could pop up at any time. I actually staved it off for a long time because I gave her so much information. And in the end, she decided no, she still thought something was wrong. And that's okay. I'd much rather flush it out, have her do it now. But as a trustee, my legal consideration is I better have that document and what I spoke to her about, how I made the calculations and so on. The other one that's even harder is it could just be irrational and somebody's coming after you. It could be strictly irrational, frequently out of anger, maybe at the settler trustor, maybe out of just, I want money and I'm going to sue you. Yeah. And there are lawsuits where they're done in contingency, so they don't have to put any money in, where they are coming after us. So the trustees have to be careful. I think I hear some family trustees talking about how they don't need an attorney, they don't need counsel. Gosh, if you hear that, I beg you to disagree with them. They're entitled to counsel by law. It doesn't necessarily cost that much. If it's easy peasy, attorney's not going to charge much, but they're going to be checking them along the way. Yeah. So even though we know what we're doing, we still have counsel and we still have certain critical checkpoints where we check in. And it might be, God, the attorney might bill me a half hour or something, it might not be that much. But they sometimes catch mistakes too. So it's, selfishly it's good, but it's also good for the trust too, because that means that is going to be done properly. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Well, Lee Ann, thanks for coming in. You're welcome. I learned a lot. I learned a ton just from being here. I've been doing this for about 19 years, but still, there's so much to learn in this business. Always. How can people reach you in your business? Oh,
It's easy.
they can just hitchmanfiduciaries.com. There's
Okay.
lots of phone numbers and emails on there.
Okay.
So, and they're welcome to email me personally too if they
Okay.
want.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Hit the subscribe link and a like button, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Thank
guys,
you.
thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.